Sorry, sometimes I'm too sneaky.
Weddings are fantastic. They're this rare opportunity to step out of the day-to-day and say to someone, hey, I kind of like you. We've been videographers in the wedding industry here on Vancouver Island for over 10 years now. And one of the most common things we hear from couples and other vendors who want to plan a sustainable event is, I'd love to, but I just don't know how.
So in this series, we're going to explore how to actually have a sustainable event. And with help from vendors all over Vancouver Island and across the wedding industry, we'll talk about how to create and celebrate a sustainable wedding from the planning stages to the footprint that's left behind. From the big picture to the small details, we'll provide tips and tricks for how to get you sustainably wed.
In our last episode, we talked about how to mitigate and manage waste. How do you deal with and dispose of the things that are left behind at the end of a wedding day? But you might be thinking, hang on, there are actually some things that I don't want to get rid of. I want to have heirlooms and keepsakes. And of course you can. So this episode is all about thinking sustainably about those heirlooms. How do you ensure that the things you invest in and want to keep after your wedding are things that you can feel good about? And I don't think there's any better place to start that conversation than with that all-important symbol of a marriage, your rings. So I visited Emma Glover, a local jeweler and ring designer, to talk about how to think sustainably about rings.
You know, for me, I think one of the most important things is the longevity of a piece. Like, you're thinking about engagement rings and wedding rings, you want to be able to wear it every day to do all the things. So thinking about the material choices as ones that last. So I think golds, particularly 14 karat and 18 karat gold, are my favorite because they don't wear down over time, like the lower carats. And gemstones that are stronger. So there's something called the Mohs scale that rates the hardness of a gemstone. And you'd want something around the 9 and 10, like a sapphire, ruby, diamond, and actually moissanite, which is man-made, is a good option as well.
When someone is looking at the longevity of their ring or trying to decide the style of ring, what kind of things should they be thinking about, in terms of their lifestyle and what they need to do with their hands, especially if they haven't worn a piece of jewelry every day like you would a wedding ring?
Very delicate rings are quite trendy right now, and I do love the look of them, but taking it up a notch so instead of like a 0.5 millimeter band, maybe 2 millimeters, something that isn't going to crush when you open a jar with your hands, things like that. Things like not really high stone settings, maybe something that you want to consider. And again, coming back to the material choices, things that will stand up to daily wear.
Another way you might create a more sustainable ring is to use an old piece of jewelry. Maybe it's a family ring or a necklace, and create something new from that piece. I think often, when people think about reusing or repurposing jewelry for a wedding, they think about just taking a ring that maybe one of their family members has passed on to them and using that exactly as it is. But I know that you have a lot of other ways to reuse the materials from those rings or other kinds of jewelry to make something new that might maybe fit someone's style or lifestyle a bit more.
Yeah, I love working with people on individual designs just for them, and often they'll bring in some heirloom pieces. Often with diamonds, it's a good idea to use stronger gemstones if you're planning on wearing them every day. So diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and we can unset them from their current pieces and use them in the new designs. Sometimes we can even use the gold, and we can most certainly refine the gold and use it towards their piece as well.
Can you make something that looks entirely different, or does it have to stay kind of similar?
Entirely different, yeah. It can go in a really different direction that suits them. We can set the gemstone lower if that suits them. We can put it in a bezel setting, or I use all kinds of nature-inspired bubbly settings and twigs and all kinds of things too. So yeah, we can make it really individual just for them.
Continuing on this theme of things you can wear after the wedding, let's talk about suits. Suits don't always get as much attention as dresses in the wedding world, but I still think they're important. And because you might actually be able to wear that jacket or outfit or suit again after the wedding, unlike a typical wedding dress, you might actually want to consider investing a little more here than you initially expected. But you can also rent a suit. So to talk about how to make the choice between renting and buying, I met up with local fashion expert and stylist Erin Bradley.
I think like if you're looking to wear a tux, so say it's like very specific and it's like a full tux, you need the shiny shoes, you need everything, then I mean, if you're never gonna wear that again, renting, it just makes sense, right? Because then you can be very specific and get it and then be done. Right. But I mean, I feel like suits, like they're so flexible these days to wear either for work or for casual or break them apart. Like either buying, but also just like, you know, getting secondhand a suit is a really great option, you know, so that you can wear it again and it's not just for like one time.
Right.
For sure.
So what kind of things would I need to think about if I were going to make that decision? Like, how would I know if buying and using it later would be right for me?
I think it depends on your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, depending on what you do, like if you wear a uniform for your job 100% of the time, then, you know, you're not going to be able to throw it into like your business casual look, like to wear like the suit jacket potentially or wear the dress pants with like a casual shirt. Yeah. So it depends on your lifestyle and it depends on like what you do for a living and whether you're going to wear it again and the mileage you might get. So, you know, if you're going to spend full price then and you're going to wear it a ton, maybe it's worth it. But if it's, you know, you're trying to be more budget and you want something high quality but you want to pay less, then consignment is a perfect option for that.
We've already talked in this series about consignment options for wedding dresses. And if you watched that episode, you'll probably hear a lot of the same themes coming up in my conversation with Erin here. But before we commit to buying a suit, let's back up and ask, do I actually have to wear a suit for my wedding?
You don't.
Okay.
I think like, honestly, I feel like all rules are out. People are doing small weddings on the beach. They're doing casual dinner like ceremonies and weddings. It doesn't have to be like that very formal, everybody's matching in your wedding party and all these things. Like, so you can wear different colors for like, if you're a bride, you can wear like soft pink, black, yellow. I have seen all types of things. So it doesn't have to be white. So I think too, like in going into a consignment store, you're finding more options and colors. So there's more freedom for that for sure.
Right, so you might find something here that you didn't really have in mind or didn't expect, but it might look awesome.
But it might, and I think that's the best thing about consignment shop because it's like a big surprise. Like you can't really, you can go in with an idea, but you don't ever know what you're gonna find. So it's good to just go in and have an open mind of like, you know, colors and certain things and then just go for it. Whether you're a guest, bride, groom, any of that.
We've talked a lot about things you can wear after a wedding, but let's talk about some of the other ways you can preserve the memories of your day. And this next one might surprise you. Have you ever thought about saving your flowers as a keepsake? I visited Anna, who runs a company called Still Posy, at her studio. Anna takes wedding flowers, like your bouquet, and turns them into these incredible works of art.
So I take all the flowers from the bouquet and I kind of deconstruct the flowers and I put them into, we use traditional wooden flower presses. We get out all the moisture and it takes, I usually leave them in there for about a month to just make sure that they're all dried out. Because I know some people, they save their bouquets, they just dry them upside down and then they're kind of like, what do I do with this? And it just stays in their closet. Or like if you try to press it and it goes moldy, then you have nothing. So I just wanted to offer people something different that they could do.
And I mean, they look amazing. Do you have to put any like chemicals or anything on that, or that's just a flower?
No, so I decided to make sure that it was all natural. Some people add coloring or synthetic coloring to preserve the coloring for a really long time, but I decided that I wanted it to look more natural, that you could see all the colors as it is. So yeah, I just leave it.
Anna is so thoughtful about every detail in this process. The flowers are hand-pressed, the frames are handmade by a local carpenter, the glass for each frame is cut at a local store, and even the paper she sends her thank you cards out on is made locally. And when you listen to Anna talk about creating her art, you can just feel her passion.
I wanted the frames to be meaningful to people, and I wanted, you know, weddings are very like chaotic and you kind of like forget the day almost. Yeah. You remember it, but you're kind of like half there because of all the adrenaline and everything. Yeah. And I wanted people to remember part of their day in like a really special and minimal way, that it's not just a dried bouquet that's in their closet and they don't really know what to do with, but that they can hang it on their wall, and when they walk past it, they can remember that part of their day.
Yeah.
And people spend a lot of money on their wedding flowers.
Yeah.
And to just throw them out just seems really wasteful.
Totally.
So having a different option to have them on your wall as a piece of artwork was really exciting for me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Something that came up already in this episode when we were talking with Emma came up here with Anna as well, and it's gonna come up again later in this episode. And that's that the natural setting and surroundings of Vancouver Island are an inspiration and a motivation to do things sustainably.
I feel like Vancouver Island is very inspirational to be natural, like you're surrounded by such beauty that I didn't want to just go on Amazon and order a frame from China. I really wanted it to be from Vancouver Island, or at least Canada, and made with people's hands. That was really important to me. So thinking that this whole frame is made with someone's hands, from the way that I pressed it in the flower press to the actual wood frame is made by a carpenter, was just important to me. That came from the ground up, I guess.
Just like flowers.
Yeah, just like flowers.
While we're talking about decor and heirlooms that you can keep after your wedding, something that a lot of people get for their wedding is signage, or stationery or similar items, like a welcome sign or timeline or a custom guest book. And you might find yourself wondering if you should rent or buy these items. So to talk through that, I sat down with Melanie of Melanie and Designs. What kind of things can people rent from you?
Yeah, so most people rent the welcome sign. Other ones are the seating chart, other things like table numbers and smaller signage, so the guest book signs and the card and gift signs. Those are my most popular.
Right. I've got to say that directional signs like "this way to the ceremony" or "washrooms this way" are the unsung heroes of a wedding. They help your day go smoothly, and they ensure your guests can navigate your venue without asking you a million questions. But you're probably not going to want to keep the sign that says "washrooms this way" and display that in your house as an heirloom. So I asked Melanie about what kinds of decor might make good heirlooms to keep after the wedding.
I would say the most common one would be a guest book. So that a guest book that has their names and their date, and then everybody can write on it, and then they can hang that on their wall just to remember that day and read all those comments, and that's pretty special. And then another one that I often get is just a welcome sign, but sometimes has a special quote that's meaningful, or just that has their names and their date and the place, just to remind them of that day. And I've had so many different ones over the years, just on wood and acrylic and canvas, and even one that I did where it was the couple's favorite bike paths, bike trails.
Oh, cool.
So I drew an actual map of all the bike trails with their name and their date, and that still hangs in their room. They showed me a picture of it up in their house. So and something that will go with your decor as well, your house. So I offer different stains or different colors for the wood, and also with the acrylic you can have certain colors on the back or no colors, just clear. So there's different options to go with your decor at home as well.
By the way, you don't have to invest in creating an heirloom piece to make a sustainable choice here. You can work with a designer like Melanie to figure out how to create something customized for you, even if it is a rental. Sometimes people hear, rentals and they think, oh, it's not going to be custom to me.
That's right.
But you can actually make things that are custom to them.
Yes, which is why I love the mirror and the chalkboard, because I can just erase this after and use it for the next person. And same with the chalkboard. And yet it can be a specific quote that you love that's meaningful. Sure. And so it's still customizable and it's still special, but it's also not single use, and it's just a rental. So it just makes me so happy that I can offer this service to people, that I can do both. I can be more sustainable, but I can also give you what you envision and make it a beautiful day. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about items as heirlooms in this episode. Clothing, rings, signage, and decor. But a big category we haven't talked about yet, and maybe the most obvious category when you think about preserving memories from your wedding, is photo and video. You might think that photos and videos don't have much of an impact footprint-wise on your day, but that might not necessarily be true. So to chat about that and how we can preserve memories sustainably, I met up with Jen McLeod in Ucluelet, far on the west coast of Vancouver Island.
I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about their wedding day, they think about it in the context of the photos that they'll have afterwards. And it makes sense, right? Pinterest and Instagram, if that's how you've seen weddings, right? That's where those come. How do you think that kind of affects the sustainability of a wedding day and what couples might be doing differently?
Well, I can actually think of a couple of pretty specific examples in which that is unsustainable, or it's something that someone may not have thought of. For example, there's been a trend of the paper lanterns, and they look so beautiful, and it's such a dramatic moment, and it's something that you want in your wedding photos, but you don't think about where that's landing.
Because eventually they don't just
disappear into the ether, or they do. The first time I ever encountered paper lanterns, I was actually in Thailand on a beach on vacation in 2007, and it was such a beautiful thing, and these beautiful paper lanterns went up into the atmosphere, and we asked the guy, well, where did they go in the end? And he said, well, you know, they land in the ocean or they land in the forest, which is not such a great thing.
Especially when they're on fire.
Especially when they're on fire, or you don't understand how many things end up in the ocean. We see it on our beaches every day, whether it's plastic, whether it's little pieces of metal. They end up in the ocean, they end up in our fish. And are they worth it for that one photo and for your moment? It's not necessarily meaningful enough, I believe, to put nature at risk, and that's something that has to be thought about. The other thing is, and it's similar, is balloons. People will let the balloons go, and same thing, they end up in the ocean. Everything ends up in the ocean. I think that's the thing that we don't really think of, is everything ends up in the ocean, whether it's the glitter that you put in something or your balloons, they end up in the ocean one day, and that's there forever.
And for that one moment on your wedding day, you know, think about photos as being the thing that lasts forever, but that balloon is going to last probably even longer than those photos do.
Do you really want the garbage in the ocean to be the legacy that you leave behind from your wedding? Probably not. And are those sort of rituals really meaningful enough that they should have that much of an impact? I think that there's a lot of trends that happen on Instagram, and trends are great, but if we haven't thought them out and there's nothing behind them, then I think we should rethink whether or not we're going to do that sort of thing, and think what sort of responsibility we have to our environment.
And living in a place like this, I imagine you see the impacts of that right on your back door.
Absolutely. You can't miss it here. It's such a beautiful and pristine place that the impact of anything even small is noticeable.
Do you have any advice for couples who would be coming, you know, maybe deciding to come to Tofino or Ucluelet to get married, on how to have a celebration that leaves this place the same, if not better than when they came?
I would recommend educating yourself about the area. There's a lot of plant life and that sort of thing that we have to avoid trampling, and places we have to avoid going, but also to just take the inspiration of the area that you're going to and going with that rather than trying to bring other things to it. This is a beautiful place.
It's pretty nice.
What else does it need? Do we need paper lanterns and other things? No, probably not.
I think when we're planning an event or wedding, or thinking about what we want to preserve from it after the fact, we have some ideas around what the photos or videos will look like. I know that I did. And I speak from my own experience as well as from the films we put together for clients, often the moments you treasure afterwards, the ones you want to hang on to, are the ones you didn't expect or plan for.
I'm always surprised by what people will share after I send them their photos. It's not usually the big wow photos that get shared. It's the moments behind the scene, the moments with their people. It's the people sitting on the chairs watching them say their vows and crying. It's the actual legitimate, authentic moments that people really end up wanting forever. It's the connections that are important. It's not The things that we may have made candid, look candid, that wasn't actually candid, those are great too, and you do need those, and we desire them, but it's the ones that people value forever. Photos with grandma, and photos of the people who sat there and stood up for us on our most important day.
Those candid moments of seeing that love, it's a moment in time that is different than the beauty shots are obviously super fun, and you know, if you're coming to a place like this, don't not do that.
You need to show off a little.
Totally, yeah. You have one photo for Instagram. That's fine. But those other shots
they're so meaningful. And I don't think people really anticipate how much they're going to value that.
The last thing I asked Jen about is an important one, and as a videographer myself, it hits home. How much responsibility do we have as vendors or anybody sharing photos or video after a wedding to either reinforce trends or inspire change?
I think we have a huge amount of responsibility. I think primarily it's our responsibility to make choices as to whether or not, or the types of things that we're sharing. And I think about it in even safe newborn photography, or trends of going into the ocean. And there have been situations in which people have gone into the ocean for a photo shoot and drowned. Or train tracks, which is very illegal.
Yeah, and definitely not the legacy you want to leave behind.
And not the legacy that you want to leave behind. I think it's one of the foremost things that you should be thinking about before you post anything. Is this ethical? Is it responsible? Is it something that I want to represent and associate with myself and my business?
This is such a big point here, and it's something we've alluded to throughout the series already. A wedding doesn't have to have a negative footprint. Your event can actually have a positive impact, leave a positive footprint, and create a positive legacy in your community and beyond. And that's such an important point that we're going to cover it in more detail in our next and final episode of the series. So stick around.